Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie Jennings from EJSLLC.com. This video is the first in my practice session series for the Red Hat Certified Specialist in Diagnostics and Troubleshooting exam EX342. Before I dive in, I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as invite anyone who's watching, if you haven't subscribed, to click that subscribe button. This video, like all other videos in this series, are going to be my practice sessions for the exam. My exam's in about 3 weeks or so, and I'm going through all of the published objectives from Red Hat and either trying to explain the concept behind the objective or do some examples of whatever it is the objective is asking you to do. These should not be considered tutorials, nor should they be considered any type of authoritative training material. This is my opportunity to do a little self-assessment, and hopefully at the end of the video I'll do well. If not, then I still have some time to try to close some knowledge gaps or brush up on some concepts between now and the exam. I do try to have the information accurate because hopefully at this point in my preparation I haven't learned something incorrectly, but understand that I am learning right along with you, so these should not be considered or used as tutorials or authoritative information. The EX342 exam is a little different than the others that I've had in the past, as far as this is an entire exam based on like troubleshooting. All the other exams I've done, such as my Ansible exams and the like, troubleshooting is a component of the exam, but really it's more of you need to know how to use the product to configure things, and the objectives that are presented are you need to be able to, make user accounts or do some other like action with a particular product. This exam, however, and the objectives will point to this, is different in the fact that you really don't know. Well, you sort of have an idea of what you'll be tested on, but there's no good way to anticipate, hey, this is likely what's going to be on the exam. I need to be able to do this, that, and the other. There are some things that are kind of obvious, and if you have experience with system administration and working with RHEL systems, you can kind of read between the lines and think, oh, these are probably going to be some things that it could be. But I imagine the exam is going to be a list of objectives that's these things are broke and you have to fix them. And you have, I think this exam's a 4-hour exam. So you have a 4-hour window to figure out, or rather they probably won't say these things are broke. They'll probably say user can't get to something, fix it. And then you have to go in, troubleshoot, figure out what's broke, and then figure out how to fix what's broke. And I kind of like the challenge of that. It's one of the reasons why I'm doing this exam, and I like the Red Hat exams in general because it's hands-on. But at the same time, if you have any experience in IT, there's a myriad of things that could potentially break with something. And so it's a bit daunting, trying to wonder, all right, what's Red Hat going to give me? Am I going to be prepared? And so as I'm going into my final practice session with this video, starting with this video, I'm trying to not be too terribly worried about that, but rather kind of asking myself, do I feel confident in troubleshooting what will probably be maybe common things that break with a particular technology? Or another way you can maybe think about it is think from the grading perspective. Obviously, these exams are probably graded via some type of a script. What would be something that would be relatively easily checked via script? Now, of course, if I knew the answers to all these, I wouldn't tell you anyway because of NDA in the exams, but I just want to give a little insight as to kind of how I'm approaching this exam that may be a bit different than some of the other Red Hat exams. But getting into the objectives, in the understand and employ general methods for troubleshooting set of objectives, collect sensitive system information to aid in troubleshooting. Now, this isn't telling us to do a particular thing, but there's a couple of things I want to demonstrate that if I were in a situation where something is broke, these are some of the things I would do to look for smoking guns, as it said, or the smoking gun as to why something is not working. So let me go to my terminal. And I can probably just do this stuff on my actual workstation terminal. So one of the first places to go for figuring out, what's wrong with something are logs. The copious amount of logging that goes on just by default in a Red Hat Enterprise Linux system. And a lot of that is a part of Journal D. So I'm actually going to become root to where I can see a bit more stuff. And you can just do journal CTL. Actually, I am going to log into one of my little lab servers because I'm going to do some things and revert my snapshot and blow it away. My workstation machine, this is, I kind of set up a simulation of what I think is going to happen as far as, you're probably going to have a machine from which you are connecting to various resources that are broke. And so I try to simulate that as much as I can. Of course, may be wrong. I may be working at the console on whatever machine is broke, but we'll see. So let's go to lab server 1, ejslab.com. Should have SSH authentication already done with keys. All right, so from here I'll become root and good old journal CTL. Notice we're telling me our logs are beginning, and this you can scroll through and see a good bit of stuff of what's going on. Generally, I don't. Well, I say generally, and of course, the moment I say generally, I think of all sorts of situations where I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't just sift through the entirety of journal CTL. Sometimes I do that, but let's say that I'm going to install Apache real quick. There's other services I could have done this with, but why not? We'll use Apache. All right, and let's start Apache, and let's do something to break it, and kind of see how this might look in the journal. So what I'm going to do for HTTPD, I'm going to get rid of because I'm sure this has to have executable permissions because it's a binary and we just ran it. Yeah, let's get rid of all of the execute permissions. So of course, would never do this in production. But that's one of the other things I wanted to mention as far as preparing for this exam. One of the things that I've done with this is do what I'm about to do now, which is break something and then see what logs and such look like after you break it. Now, of course, you can't necessarily pretend, hey, this is what I did to break it, and then troubleshoot that problem. I mean, you sort of can, but you already know what you did to break something. But sometimes I think it's helpful to break something and look at the logs to where if you encounter something that's broke like this on the exam, you might recognize it a little bit faster, because the 4 hours that we get, I'm sure will, as proven by other Red Hat exams that I've done, that time will vanish before you know it. So we'll do change mode minus executable for sbin HTTPD. All right, so we're going to stop, and we're going to try to start this again. Of course, it's going to fail. Okay, so let's pretend like, we check systemctl status. Oops, need to tell it HTTPD. And we see that it's failed and it has the, status code and all that. Make sure I'm staying, get system information to aid in troubleshooting. Well, I suppose I could say systemctl status is, I was going to talk about the journal, but systemctl status is a good place to start as far as getting information. This obviously tells us that this service failed to start. It gives us some information about if the service is enabled or not. It might be a situation where all that needs to happen is you make sure the service is enabled to where it starts at boot time. Probably if you're having to troubleshoot a service with this, the expectation is going to be that it be enabled, because most Red Hat exams are like whatever you fix or configure has to survive reboots. But if I wanted to go into the journal, let's say that that it hasn't failed, but there's other things that might be going on with HTTPD, and I want to get just HTTPD stuff in the journal. What I can do is journalctl -- unit and then the service. And this should, famous last words in IT, give me just what's in the journal for systemd. Now we see where we actually started the server, and I made some type of a change. I stopped. It tries to start again. We see that it fails to start. There's a option. It's XE, and I think you may have seen it in the initial message. Let's take a look at man for journal CTL. I'm curious to see what XE actually stands for. I know it as it gives you some extra information about the entry. Figure that would be, oh, it would just be X and then just E. Let's see what happens. I might not be able to use it with unit. Yeah, I can. Okay. One other thing I suggest if you are preparing for the exam is to just try little things. Like, hey, let's see what happens. You might, that might kind of send you down a rabbit hole that gets you thinking through a topic or an objective more, and you tend to remember and retain information that you have discovered more than just information that you have consumed. So just a thought there. So this hasn't given us a whole lot, but if we were to try to, if we were troubleshooting from here, yeah, let's do this. It's obviously going to fail. Journal. See if this gives any different output. I mean, it is, because I didn't say just it's doing the entire journal, but as far as so that didn't give us a whole lot. Obviously, if it failed to start, there's a number of things that could be going wrong. It could be an issue of the HTTPD configuration. I obviously happen to know that it is, it's an issue of the fact that I've made the executable non-functioning. I'm not going to, in this particular practice session, go into the tools of how I would specifically look to see what may be wrong with the binary or the package. That there's other objectives that are like application specific, but I was just showing about the journal. A couple of other things to consider, and this is some stuff that I've learned as a part of the preparation process. There should be an option, list boot, and what you can do is, obviously we just have one boot for this machine, so we'll need to, well, let me explain what I'm getting at, and then we'll do some examples. You can get the entries of journal CTL between boots. I want to think by default it just shows the most recent boot, which would kind of make sense because by default journal CTL is not persistent, which that's another thing that I did want to get to with this particular topic. And remember what I said a few minutes ago about kind of things that are easy for Red Hat to grade via script. And this is a really easy one, is making sure that journal CTL persists. And this would be important if you have a long running system and so it reboots, but you still want to have journal CTL or journal D entries after reboot. By default, journal D is not set to be persistent. So if we want to make it be persistent, now that being said, varlog messages and such, which let me go into this varlog. Journal D will have stuff from most of these. The varlog messages will persist. It'll go as, actually, let's see. Let's do head messages. Yeah, see, I have stuff back from October 19th when I first made the VM. But journal D, if I were to do journal CTL, I think, can I do like a recent? No. There's a lot of different little flags with journal CTL. Man pages are your friend with this rather than trying to memorize them all. But if I were to just do journal CTL, just from the beginning, the logs begin, today, November 28th, which we're in 2024. Happy Thanksgiving. Those of you that it's probably going to be long after Thanksgiving before this finally gets out to YouTube and other services, but yay, happy Thanksgiving. The point being, of course, that messages and the other files have entries as long as they have entries, and the journal rotation hasn't, or the log rotation hasn't eaten them. But if we wanted to make journal D be persistent, there's a couple things we need to do. Actually, I think there's just a couple of ways of doing this. First, what we can do, and I want you to take a look at what's in this directory. So there's nothing mentioning journal in this directory. We're going to go to the etc. Is it just journald.conf, or is it within? No, I don't want to go to all that. Oh, where is that? config file. There's a config file specifically for Journal D. This is another reason why I do all of these review session videos before my exam, and I start a couple, or ideally 4 weeks, but in this case 3 weeks before, is it helps me get some stuff back to the front of my head that I might need to know for the exam that I can find, but it takes me a while. And that was like, is it under Etsy default? Let's see. Nope, that's going to be all your, oh, where are you? There we are. It's in the systemd directory. I was thinking there was a separate one for Journal D, but clearly not. So I'm going to go into journald.conf, and what we're going to do is change storage from auto to persistent. Now, if you're curious as to what values can go in that, notice it says see Journal D, the man 5 page for it. And I believe this is mentioned here. And it tells you auto, persistent, volatile, or none. At this point, you would restart the Journal D service. So systemctl restart systemd Journal D. Is it systemd journal or Journal D? I thought it was Journal D. And now, if we were to go to var log, we see there is a directory called journal, and within that, this is the storage for Journal D. So what I'm going to do, we're going to reboot this server, and let's see if our Journal D entries persist. Give this a minute or so to reboot, and then we'll SSH back in and check it out. All right, so we're back into server 1. I've already become root again. And if I were to do this, journal CTL, CTL, I can spell this evening. Notice we have 2 entries here for boot times, and you see the timestamps for each of these. And if I were to just do journal CTL, we still see our logs from earlier today. The current time is 1935. We still see the logs from 1251, and if I go to the end, all the way to current. And I think, is there a boot option? Yeah, so let me do that list boot again. If I want, I'm not sure what this field means. In fact, you have -1. I should be able to copy that. And we get all of the logs from that most recent boot, or whatever boot that you specify for it. Okay, so I'm kind of doing a little mental checklist here of things that would be collect system information to aid in troubleshooting. So Journal CTL is a big one, or Journal D rather. We looked at some of the system CTL stuff. You can dig into, oops, I'm going to var log. You can dig into the log files themselves. That's an important thing. I'm not going to go through a lot of these files. There is one that I do want to talk about some, and there is the audit log. The audit log is going to have a lot of stuff that is like SE Linux related, and there are a couple of tools to get this information. One tool is the SE troubleshoot tool, which I'm going to talk about that some more in some of the objectives specific for SE troubleshoot. You can use a tool called AU search, and AU search is going to be a bit more archaic stuff from SE troubleshoot and the SE alert command that goes with it, but I believe it's something that's just kind of built in. So let me show you what that were to look like. I'm going to do a AU search and do timestamp. There's actually a timestamp recent. I need to look at the man page to see, or start time is what TS is. See what's defined as recent. This is all the stuff. A lot of what's in the audit log. I just head audit log has a ton of different little things in there. If I wanted to get just SE Linux messages out of that, AU search -I will give you a little bit more human readable information, I believe. Looking for AV, I think it's AVC. Oh, what was that? Used to be, not used to be, it is. That stands for something. It's Oh, I can't remember. It slips my mind. It's not something I'm going to have to necessarily know for the exam, but it's just kind of good trivia to know. I got to look that up. I want to think it's either advanced audit vector cache, maybe like advanced or audit vector cache, something like that. I'm probably wrong. If you know, feel free to put that in the comments, but otherwise I'm going to have to consult Dr. Google about that one. And we'll do TS recent again. Oops. Maybe it's capitalized AVC. M is for message type. Huh. Well, let's do this. I'm sure there's some SC Linux alerts that are in here. What I'm going to do is change this. We see all the user account, the type, message type. I thought it was AVC. Let me do it. Clear this. We'll do this without the recent. Well, now I'm starting to doubt myself if it's AVC or not. Just casually scroll through this, see if we can find one. You know, I know how I can generate one. Didn't think about this. All right, so first let's fix HTTPD. And what I'm going to do, let's see. Let's go into var www, HTML. Just make us a little text page here. And of course, it's going to have the right context, but we're going to break this SE Linux context to try to get an SE Linux event, so I can show you that with the AU search. Let's see. Well, didn't intend to get into SE manage and file context, but just pick a file context. PKI Tomcat cert T looks good. Now, usually you would not have it use the change.conf command in forever, so this is not the command that you would usually use. You would usually set up a file context with SE manage and then use restore con. But all right, so just context and files, all I need. All right, let's see if I can do this. So change con, we have to do -t for type. Okay. All right, so we've broken the SE Linux context for this file. Let's do just localhost. Yeah, I have to restart HTTPD. So, all right, and well, that didn't work the way that I thought. Okay, I'm really going to try to break it now. So we are going to change this all to PKI Tomcat cert T. Okay. All right, that's infuriating because SE Linux should be preventing this. No, maybe this is a thing to troubleshoot. Maybe it's on the exam. Hey, SE Linux should be blocking this. It's not. What's wrong? Make sure we're enforcing. Yeah, we're enforcing. Maybe this is just because I'm root and I'm talking to localhost. Maybe that's what's up. Let me not be root anymore, and let's see what happens. Well, wasn't expecting that, so let's try from the outside world, see if that works. I know I could do just the service, but I get so used to doing ports. All right, that's weird, because I was totally expecting that to spit out or give me at least like a 403, forbidden to be able to read that, considering I have completely murked up SE Linux for it. Oh, I'm so tempted to try to keep going down this rabbit hole and figure out why SE Linux is doing like that. But, and that's one of the things when you're trying to practice for troubleshooting, things like this can come up, and that can lead you down a whole troubleshooting thing, and you can learn some nifty stuff through that. But, eyes on the prize. I want to try to stay focused on the task at hand. So you can use AU search to go through audit log and be able to find SE Linux and various other things in the audit log. And that -m, if you happen to know the message type, which I thought AVC was it for SE Linux, I still think it is, but you can use the message type filter to try to get some more relevant information to whatever it is that you're looking for with it. So we've done journal D. We have, I think you can make journal D persistent by just making the var log journal directory available and restarting the service. Like if it's present, since it's set to auto, it'll persist. Otherwise, you set that to persistent storage. Other things, make sure that, all right, so specifically collect system information to aid in troubleshooting. The other thing I'm thinking of is Red Hat's SOS tool, which if you've ever had to deal with Red Hat support, they will usually ask you for SOS. I am not, let's see if it's installed already. Probably is. Yeah. Otherwise, yum install SOS. This will generate basically a bundle of a bunch of log files and such that you can send to Red Hat. And I think the command is SOS report, if I remember off the top of my head. I think you need to be root to use it, or you maybe, we'll try it without root and see what happens. Command is SOS report. That's what I figured. Yeah, you generally would need to be root for this kind of thing. Oh wait, I don't do this on my server to where I have a passwordless sudo set up. So SOS report. This will take a minute or so. And what you can do, if you're already working with Red Hat, you can put in your case ID and it'll append that to the file name of the report. And I think it'll generate a couple of files that have that in there. While this is running, there's a couple of things you can do with this that are kind of nifty. There is a command that will obscure some information in the SOS bundle that Red Hat thinks would be sensitive information, like maybe IP addresses and such. And what that will do is basically generate a key file, so you can send Red Hat the information that they can do to troubleshoot, but have a way of deciphering some of the I guess personal information that would be in it. We'll see what happens here with this. When I was doing my training for this exam, this was one of the first things in my training was, hey, learn how to look at logs and such, which of course I already know how to look at logs, so I haven't touched this command in a while. But that's why we do these reviews, try to get that back in your head before your exam. Speaking of, I don't recommend trying to cram for this type of exam. That will be foolish. This is stuff that, I know most of what this is. There will be some things that I'm sure I'm not super strong with, but this is just like getting it back to the front of your head. All right, so I'm actually going to copy this to here. And if I were to do, what's XZ? Is that, no, J is Z. Capital J. Okay. So if I were to do a tar, capital J, TF, this is all the stuff that's in it. And it's let me just extract it. So X, J, F. This might take a bit. Oh no, not too long. All right. So if we were to dig into SOS report, what version tells us? That just tells us what version SOS report is. Okay, so a lot of those are symlinks into SOS commands. So let's look at what LSOF tells us. Cat LSOF. So it's information about open files, which is the same as running the LSOF command. It's all sorts of stuff that Red Hat can use for diagnostics. The things that I wanted to show you though. Oh, what's the command? I think it's not encrypt. Maybe it's sanitize. Let's look at man SOS. Report collect. It's clean, I'll bet. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay, so let's run SOS clean on the report. And I'll show you what the output is. Feels like this is taking longer than generating the SOS report itself, which I guess kind of makes sense. This is one of these things I could see as like low level or low hanging fruit for Red Hat to test. Generate an SOS report that has like critical information obscure or maybe sensitive information obscured. And the expectation is you're running an SOS report and then running clean on it after. Okay, so it actually made us a new one of these. So we're going to copy these things to my home directory here. We already know what's in it's basically the same as the tarball, but this basically for, what Red Hat's going to get and look at is, all right, so you have host 0 obfuscatedomain0.com. And what Red Hat will probably tell you is, hey, you're not able to reach host 0, and this is what's going on with that. But what you would do because you send Red Hat the obfuscated one, what you can then do is go back to this map file and see, oh, every time they say host0.obfuscatedomain.com, I know that that's actually talking about lab server 1.egslab.com, or yeah. And let's say that it talks about the this IP address block 10.0.50.10. If they mention 100.0.0.1, that's really this IP block here. So it's kind of a nifty little thing. It would be a little bit of a pain to kind of go back and forth, but if you needed to obscure some stuff, hey, it's a free little method to be able to do that. So I know we're getting a bit long with this practice session. I think to collect system information to aid with troubleshooting, I think I'm pretty strong with that. I mean, there's other little things you can do if you needed to get all of your current packages. RPM QA. You can look at yum history for seeing when stuff was installed, or DNF history to see when stuff was installed. But I think for this concept, I'm pretty strong with it. Hopefully, I would be able to gather information about my system to troubleshoot things. So if you found this video useful, make sure you do click like. I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, and invite anyone who's watching, if you haven't subscribed, to click the subscribe button and ring the bell so you can get notifications when I do make new content. I've actually been doing content most of the year pursuing these exams. I haven't had the time to edit them, and usually editing is just taking out silence and doing a little bit of audio editing to make this a little bit more listenable, and then of course getting it uploaded to YouTube and other services. I simply haven't had the time with my testing schedule, but they're coming soon. When I pass this test here, I'll be quote done. But if you have that bell clicked, then you'll get your notification of when I finally get around to putting up other videos. Regardless, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch, and I will see you the next time.